Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon. Oluyemisi Akinadeniyi. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, good. Yes, it's actually a minute past 4 Nigerian time here, and we are actually having this session given the fact that our country is celebrating a 60th anniversary as an independent state. And we at African Polling Institute desires to, see how far our country has been able to pass through the odds, how well we've been able to, steer the tides of nationhood and nation building. And as a result, we've been able to conduct a survey, one that most commentators who have read consider very significant because it raises questions about the social contract between Nigeria and Nigerians. And having with me to chair this roundtable is Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, who is a senior fellow with Center for Democracy and Development, Abuja. And I also have Olufunke Baruwa, who is also a senior program officer at Ford Foundation. Welcome. And we have a few of our hosts too. We have Olumayo Olaniyi, of course, we have Nelly, Eva Pena, we have Olatunji Damilare, we have Tonya Fashion. Welcome, and I greet you all. Okay, so Professor Jibrin Ibrahim is our key speaker, and he is going to make his analysis. He's going to make certain contributions about how far Nigeria have been able to fare in the last 60 years. So, Executive Director, Dr. Belly, who has just joined us, our Executive Director at African Polling Institute. Thank you for joining us. We also have Ekene Okonkwo.
I think I need to step in briefly for Collins. Good afternoon, everyone, once again, and Polling Institute. And while we're waiting for Collins to join back in, let me say that Africa Polling Institute is an independent, non-profit, non-partisan opinion research think tank based in Abuja. We conduct social research and evaluation studies at the intersection of democracy, governance, policy, economy, and public life. And it's only imperative that as a public opinion think tank, we conducted a number of surveys and opinion polls, and we thought we should bring this to the fore, especially at a day like this where Nigeria is marking its 60th independence. And I would like to, let me even start by saying happy independence to everyone, all our Nigerian brothers and sisters joining us from far and near, and all our friends that have come from around the world to join us in this session. So Africa Polling Institute had conducted a survey in the month of August, which built up from our past work. So last year in 2019, we conducted a survey on social cohesion, which had the Nigeria Social Cohesion Survey. And that survey basically was extreme the centrifugal and centripetal forces that are either holding Nigeria, putting Nigeria together, or pulling Nigeria apart. And this current work tried to follow on from that past work. The current work, we wanted to also look at the issue on the social contract. And this is the first part in a two-part survey. This first part is, does Nigeria love Nigerians? And the second part will also be, do Nigerians love Nigeria? Because we also have to put a balance there. And for this session today, I wouldn't take much of our time. I just wanted to give a quick, we have two distinguished guests. As colleagues, as mentioned, we have Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, popularly known as Jibo, Senior Fellow, Center for Democracy and Development. It's truly an honor to have you join us, Jibo. And this is Olufunke Baruwa, Program Officer, Gender, Race, and Ethnic Justice for the Ford Foundation, also joining us. We're delighted to have you all join us, and we'll commence this conversation immediately. I don't know if Collins is still logged in, but in any case, I want to ask Jibo to take the first shot. Jibo, Nigeria is 60 today. When you look at governance, you look at democracy, how far would you say the country has gone, and how well would you assess the current state of the nation? Yes, loud and clear, loud and clear.
Okay. Thanks, Ihua, for organizing this important survey on the attitudes of Nigerians towards the social contract between them as citizens and the state. Before talking about what Nigerians feel, I want to make 2 points. One is about why is a social contract important? And the second issue is how do we unmask what Ihua is saying? That is, statisticians have this professional deformation of bombarding us with numbers and figures. So we always have a responsibility to disaggregate and point out which ones are important and which ones are superfluous. First, on the social contract. The idea in society is that before the social contract, people live in total freedom. Total freedom means they can do whatever they want to others, but others can also do whatever they want to do to them. So if you don't like your neighbor, you kill him. But maybe your neighbor is stronger and he'll kill you first. So you don't want that situation that Hobbes described as nasty, brutish, and short. That's life. You want a situation where people are protected, but at the same time, they enjoy the fundamentals of life. So the idea of a social contract is that you as citizens have an agreement with the state in which the state provides you protection and you carry out your duties to enable the state provide that protection. To come to the survey that we are discussing today, there are only 2 numbers that are important. Don't get over-impressed with all the numbers they gave us. The first number that's important is that 91% of Nigerians are proud to be Nigerians. That's great. That tells you one thing and one thing alone. Nigerians love their country. The second important number in the survey is that 33% of Nigerians do not trust that the state works for them. Therefore, the social contract between Nigerians and the state is broken. And that's what this whole survey is about. All the other numbers simply give us details about whether Nigerians get benefits from the state and all that. But let's take this issue of that the content of the social contract. There are 3 elements in a social contract between the state and its citizens. The first element of the contract is what's called the production contract. And what this means is that the state provides for citizens safety, and it provides for them, first it provides safety. Secondly, it provides infrastructure so that they can enjoy their lives. But this contract between the state and citizens is what's called a dyadic contract. That is, I do this for you and you do this for me. So for the state to provide security and infrastructure to citizens, citizens undertake to pay their taxes to the state so that the resources to provide those would be available. So when we say the contract is broken, it's broken both ways. That is, the state is not providing what it should for citizens, but also citizens are not providing their obligations they are supposed to give to the state so that the state can deliver. The second element of the dyadic contract between the state and citizens has to do with what's called the regulative function of the state, which is to say, the state produces laws and a system of justice to make sure that everything is working fine in the society. In compensation, in response, the citizens undertake to obey all laws and behave themselves in conformity with the provisions of the judicial system. When you look at these elements again, you see that the dyadic contract is broken. The laws are provided. The state is supposed to have rule of law in which all are equal before the law, but we know in Nigeria we are not all equal before the law. And because Nigerians know that equality before the law, the rule of law does not exist, they also disregard the law, and the commitment of every citizen is to dodge, to refuse to obey laws. There is therefore a comprehensive sense of broken contract between the state and the citizen. And I think it is in this context that we can examine 60 years of independence of Nigeria and how we arrived at this situation in which this dyadic contract between the state and the citizens happens. Let me just give one indication before I stop so that Baruwa could have an opportunity to come in. Between 1960 and 1980, Nigerian citizens paid their tax to the state and therefore had a right to insist that the state carries on its own part of the contract. I say 1980 only in a symbolic sense because it's in 1980 that Kano and Kaduna states said they are no longer going to collect taxes from the state. In reality, it's at the end of the Civil War in the early 70s when the oil boom, that the Nigerian state no longer invested in collecting taxes. Now, what happens when you don't collect taxes from your citizens is that first, you don't know them anymore, because from colonization to 1970, you wouldn't believe it, the Nigerian state knew every cow in Nigeria. It knew every cow in Nigeria because it was taxing every cow, and the pastoralists had to be monitored closely. They had to be known. Their movements had to be followed very closely so that they will behave and the state will behave towards them. The behavior of the state was to protect cattle routes for pastoralists. The responsibility of pastoralists was to pay their annual taxes to the states. So if the state knew the cattle in the country from 1903 up till around 1970, you can be sure they knew Nigerians. Today, because the Nigerian state has no relationship with citizens, it doesn't know who are the citizens of this country. It cannot tell you, no state functionary can tell you who are Nigerians, where are they, what are they doing, what is their income. The state doesn't know that anymore. So what we are talking about is a collapse of the system. This is my opener, and thanks for listening.
Okay, thank you, Prof. That was a very good one, and that introduction would actually pave way for the discourse at large. It is quite important that we remark that put citizens at the heart of economic development policies is one way of assessing a country's love for her citizens. And this is one philosophy upon which our survey rests. And your assessment of the situation is quite germane, and it will give us a good compass as to how well we can, make assessment of the Nigerian situation after 60 years. I would want Mrs. Olufunke Baruwa to join the conversation and make some introduction, please. Okay, yes, thanks.
Ask me to speak after. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, good afternoon. We can
Hello,
hear
can
you.
you hear me?
Yes, very well. We can hear you. Just go ahead, please.
It's not fair to ask me to speak after Prof.
Why did you say so?
Knows why. Nice. Yeah, I just said how Independence Day. So Nigeria is at the state of retirement right now. If we go by the retirement age in Nigeria, and anyone who is at that age of retirement by now should have saved up enough for the rainy day. I don't know if we can say that about our country at the moment. And that I agree with Prof that Nigeria does not know its people. Unfortunately, we don't know much about our citizens, and the citizens themselves don't feel that they don't owe this country much because the country hasn't really done much, at least for people who are under maybe 40. I can say that for those who are under 40. What has Nigeria really invested in its citizens? I looked at some of the indicators, some of the polling, and I was I was distraught because I think you mentioned the first one, right? Sorry, the first poll, there was a poll that you were referring to.
Okay, this is actually the first.
Yeah,
and we
the screen, but that's
okay. Okay, let me quickly share the screen so you see. Yes. Okay.
Is it the one on what policies should be reinforced to add value to the lives of Nigerians?
No, the first is, are you proud to be Nigerian?
Yes. The first is, are you proud to be Nigerian? I mean, yes, people still said 91%, but when you unbundle this kind of statistics, like Prof said, then people begin to give you all the problems and the attendant problems that come with being a Nigerian citizen. But I'm sort of happy in a way that a lot of people still say they are proud to be Nigerian citizens. 33% here are saying that they have trust in the Nigerian state, and only 67%, a huge number, are saying not at all or just a little. So that shows that the gap is, this is almost 1/3 of the number. The gap is huge, but pride in being a Nigerian, and if you unbundle that stat, you would find out that there's still a lot of discontent in that being proud to be a Nigerian. What choices do we have? What options do we have but this country, Nigeria? That would be my opening statement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Olufunke Baruwa. Well, I think that was a good one too, and we had actually rested on 10 indicators, to accentuate or understand whether Nigerians actually understand the nature of love that the country has for them. And we had actually begun by asking citizens, what is their level of trust, in the Nigerian state, after asking them whether they are proud of being Nigerian. And of course, we went further to say, what have citizens benefited from the country in the last 5 years? Of course, does Nigerian life matter to the government? we also went further to question whether the voice of a Nigerian counts in government, in government's decision-making process. You know, as occasions goes by, we would unveil all of this, but Professor Jibo has actually, you know, given us a prelude to the most important question, you know, and he chose the first indicator as the most resounding one, and it asks whether Nigerians are actually proud of being a citizen of the Nigerian state. Prof, it would interest us to know that, you know, this is a survey and the nature of the methodology is such that we took a subset of the entire population to make our conclusions, and Nigerians are speaking. Meanwhile, a subsequent version of this survey will see to whether does Nigerians love Nigeria? You know, that will be the second version of the study. But for the time being, we are going to be making this illustration in the order that we have surveyed the respondents who gave us their time and opportunity to assess the nature of the Nigerian state. Give the room for Dr. Belihua to make a comment about this situation while I share the slides for us to see.
Thank you very much, Collins. And thank you for the intro by Jibo and Funke. I think today's session really is we want to gain from our distinguished guests. We really want to hear from them and their opinion regarding why some of these answers are the way they are. Prof, we see clearly here a love-hate relationship between citizens and the state. And I would like to ask your opinion on why you think this is so. So on the one hand, we have a situation where 91% of Nigerians are pleased, are proud to be Nigerians, and they don't hide their pride about, you know, for the country. But on the other hand, there are issues of trust. And I'm asking this question vis-a-vis our return to democracy in 1999. 2020 makes it 21 years since our return to democracy. Why do we see this love-hate relationship between the citizens and the state? What has happened in 20 years that has led to a decline of trust by the citizens towards the government? Prof, please.
Nigerians are saying, I love the state. The state is saying, I reject you. So therefore, I wouldn't do anything you need. I wouldn't do anything that's nice for you. I wouldn't do anything to maintain that relationship of love you have shown towards me. And I think when we look at the last 21 years, we can see very clearly that for 30 years, we fought against military dictatorship. When I say we, I mean Nigerian citizens. They didn't want the autocracy. They didn't want the lack of respect for their rights as human beings. They didn't like arbitrary rule, and therefore fought so hard for democracy. Democracy that had been so elusive. First Republic, 5 years only. Second Republic, 4 years only. Third Republic didn't even take off. And it was broken directly by the military in a way that Nigerians found extremely objectionable and full of hate. That's the June 93 saga. So 1999 came with huge expectations. We are transiting back to democracy, and that transition comes with expectations. Now it is the voice of citizens that would determine how governance operates. Citizens would now participate in the running of their affairs. The representatives elected by citizens would go to the center and carry out the wishes of their constituents. Those were the expectations of 1999. Those expectations were not met at all. What Nigerians saw continuously for a period of over 2 decades was complete disregard for their interests, for their views, for their mandate that they gave these people. And I think the 21-year history is best illustrated by the elections of 2003 and 2007, when those who were in power took the decision that even that sovereign vote, that sovereign mandate that the people had to choose who they wanted to govern or misgovern them was withdrawn from the people with massive electoral fraud organized by the state. There's a sense in which it was those elections that were the final blow to the covenant between the people and the state in Nigeria. The problem with that covenant is that it impacts both ways. For the ruling class, they were able to decide whether or not people wanted who will be in power. That meant they didn't have to have any regard or any consideration for the citizens. As one famous governor said during the 2007 elections, when people complained that if he doesn't take it, they won't vote for him. And he said, well, you never voted for me. My money and the power I could muster brought me to this government house. So whether you say you vote or not vote for me is neither here nor there. The second impact of denying mandate to people is that the people themselves then become apathetic, then feel that this state, this government is not theirs and has nothing to do with them, and that they are just not only onlookers to the process of governance, they were in fact completely marginalized from that process. And it was in that context that the key word in Nigerian politics became the marginalization. The problem then became, how do you define that marginalization? And people sought for variables with which to define how they were marginalized. And that's in the context in which identities became extremely important as divisive forces in the Nigerian Federation. Ethnic identity, religious identity, regional, zonal identities, all became the elements for defining how Nigerians are marginalized from the state. And what the use of identity as a definition of the basis of your marginalization does is that it sows the seeds of division, and people begin to question, isn't this polity, this political system called Nigeria, not too harmful for me? Should I really stay in? Should I opt out? And that's the sense in which I think Baruwa was right when she said this idea that 91% of people are proud of being Nigerian. We have to interrogate that result. Maybe what people thought is that if this Nigeria were the Nigeria of my dreams, then I'm in love with this Nigeria. But these Nigerians already know that the Nigeria they are living in is not the Nigeria of their dreams, of their desires, of their interests. It's a Nigeria that batters them, that marginalizes them, that refuses to pursue their interest. And in that context, we have to really look closely and that 91% that says I'm proud of being a Nigerian. My sense of what they mean is that the only nationality I have is Nigerian, and therefore I'm proud of that Nigeria. And then when they think for 1 second, say, but this Nigeria doesn't do anything for me. It's broken the bond. All I have is suffering. Therefore, that love becomes qualified. Then the rejection feeling comes. I love this my country, but this country of mine doesn't appear to love me back. And therefore, despondent, and therefore set aside, and therefore thrown away. I wish the Nigeria of my dream is the country I live in. Sadly, dramatically, that Nigeria of my dreams is not the Nigeria I live in and I see every day.
Okay, thank you, Prof, for that quite comprehensive assessment of the situation. Actually, when we had engaged respondents via the key informant interview instrument, and of course, relying on focus group discussion that we've had over time, most citizens had actually submitted that they are proud of being Nigerians because that they wouldn't ordinarily want to be a citizen of maybe South Sudan or Sudanese government or state. Neither would they want to be associated as being a citizen of Somalia. Nigeria, yes, have plethora of challenges that are besieging them at the moment, but that there is a tendency for the country to, climax and, of course, get to that promised land that our leaders, Nigerians themselves, have oftentimes expressed. So they kept the hope. Of course, we know that the citizens still believe that someday that Nigeria as a state is going to turn around and provide the much desired dividends of democracy and governance that the citizens have always yearned for. Now, Ms. Olufunke Baruwa, please, given what Prof has actually submitted, those who were interviewed or those who were sampled were asked, do you believe your life matters to the Nigerian states or to the Nigerian government, given the most current realities of the times, security violent attacks are cited here and there? What is your opinion? What is your perception about the issue? How well do you think that these results are reflections of the most current realities, please?
Thank you. I wanted to say a couple of things before I answer that, to follow up on what Prof said. For any relationship to work, there has to be a sort of give and take, and the earlier question you asked looks to me like the Nigerian giving to the state and the state not giving anything back to the Nigerian. And I think that the middle class or the upper class, I don't know if we still have a middle class, or the political class are doing this intentionally, because as they continue to do that, there's a chasm between the average Nigerian and the political class. As this chasm continues to, increase and the gulf continues to increase, we have this constant disconnect, that we can no longer reach the political class. Go figure. The difference between, you are either rich, as in very rich in Nigeria, or you're poor. And forget all those who drive Tokumbo cars and think they are comfortable or live in apartments. You are either very rich right now or you're very poor. One of the two. There's hardly any middle class in between. And for any relationship to work, like I said, there has to be a give and take. Anything short of this, is an abusive relationship. So most of us are in an abusive relationship with Nigeria. You love that person, you keep loving that person and hoping that one day the person will love you back in return. That's an abusive relationship. And there's going to be a time when Nigerians can no longer take this anymore. And I think we're getting close to that. So as I said earlier, there's this systematic degradation of the middle class, of the lower class, the upper middle class or whatever. It's been taken from Nigeria. And that's resulting. How many Nigerians have another option? What choices do we have? This is the only country we have. And even though I love this country, Nigeria really doesn't need us. The political class who run things don't need us. They only need the oil. They need money from the oil revenue. So they don't need Nigerians. And that's why it's very difficult for the political class further this division by throwing in religion, throwing in ethnicity. I don't like to add inclination, because there's no political inclination. We don't even have any ideology between our political parties. So I don't say an APC or a PDC, or a PDP. So it's just religion and ethnicity. And because they only need this oil revenue, they don't need to give anything back to Nigeria, whether we pay our taxes or not, except for a few states, maybe like Lagos, who rely on huge tax revenue. For the other states, they get their share of the booty every month or every quarter from the federal government. So they don't need you, they don't need me. Now, this is what we have right now is a situation of state capture. Nigerians only love the ideology of Nigeria. They don't love Nigeria itself. That's my postulation. We love the ideology of Nigeria. We reminisce how Nigeria used to be when you're in university, it's free education and all that. We love that ideology of Nigeria, but I don't think that Nigerians currently love Nigeria the way it is. And of course, when you go back to this question, do you believe your life matters to the Nigerian government? I'm shocked that even only 45% of people say that, said no, and 40% said yes. I thought that this would be a real, and we must be wary of I thought that this would be very huge, that maybe 60 to 70% will say, no, my life doesn't matter to Nigeria, and maybe a few will say yes. And we also should be careful of this trying to look good before the camera. We do it a lot, so it's a poll, but it's a reflection of a set of people that you have also interviewed. But if you look at where our country is, what is the life of every Nigerian worth? Last week, I was driving and I think an accident had happened and people were just taking pictures. And I was asking the driver, why were people not driving? So I don't know if I would have stopped. And he said, you take this person to the system itself does not protect the average Nigerian. So you're even scared to help your fellow Nigerian. Now, this constant degradation, this continued degradation of our institutions, the institutions are now so weak that even when you have money, you're a local government all to yourself. So you don't matter to this country because this country doesn't need you. All Nigeria needs, the only thing that matters to Nigeria right now is oil. That's what matters, and to the political class who run the show. I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think the position of the survey actually conforms to the position or the idea of one scholar, Asado, who had argued that Nigerian lives do not matter to the Nigerian government, given the government's poor response to various issues pertaining to citizens' well-being and, of course, protection. Prof, we are looking at how much Nigerian lives matter to the Nigerian state. I don't know if you have anything to say about this, given the fact that there is heightened insecurity and tension in some parts of the country.
Well, the theory is that every single life should be of utmost importance for the state. Depends on the existence of the citizens of the country. Lives do not matter to the state. What we have seen over the past 2 decades was a very rapid expansion of insecurity in this country. For a majority of Nigerians who are young, and who have not seen any life outside the Fourth Republic, their big issue would be, why is our system having all over this country over the past few years is the Nigerian police force, which is the institution that's supposed to protect the lives of the Nigerians. The Nigerian police force has a crack force called SARS that Nigerians to killing Nigerians. And that's really is doing this to Nigerians, then there's a huge question of whether our lives as Nigerians matter. One of the justifications for colonialism at the beginning of the 20th century was rural banditry was very high throughout rural Nigeria, having just come out of the slave trade, intertribal wars, and all that. Today, rural insecurity in this country has moved from the cities to the countryside. And the problem before so many farmers in this country today is that it's not safe for them to go to their farms. If they dare go to their farm, they may not come back alive. They may be kidnapped for ransom. They may be killed by people who have arms that is not supposed to. The way in which the state considers the importance of the lives of its citizens is the most important indicator of whether there is a relationship of love and trust between that state and its citizens. And the evidence we have in this country is that that commitment to public safety simply does not exist, or if it exists, is very minimal. And I will also join Baruwa in saying the numbers you have are surprisingly
This is the position of Nigerians that we've sampled. Okay, moving forward.
Let me add quickly, Collins, that I quite understand Prof's sentiments. This is a nationwide survey, and to that extent, we have opinions from different parts of the country. So by the time we aggregate and do our see that it evens out. So this is why.
Okay, so I like I said, the next question, the next major indicator is whether Nigerians believe their opinion or voice counts in any form of decision made by government. We've seen several protests, several rejections of a few years, and that is only a reflection of the fact that citizens are hardly consulted, when policies are being formulated, when policies are being implemented, monitored, and evaluated. And you see, okay, for instance, we have the recent hike in electricity and of course in PMS, and there is this widespread disaffection with the position of government on the justifications for these increases. Now, Baruwa, please, what is your perception, what is your opinion of this situation?
Thank you. I'm looking at the polls now. This one, do you believe the opinion voice counts in any form of decision made? Yes, 20%. No, 54%. Quite representative, because really, what decisions have been upturned by, what policy decisions has the Nigerian state upturned because citizens have cried foul or because citizens have complained? Not many. But we have in the electricity tariff, even though we don't know what went down between labor and government. Maybe Prof has some insider perspective of that, but ordinary citizens like us, we don't know what deals went
Why
down,
am I
because I still
citizen too?
don't Prof is, I still don't see the I don't see what the 2 weeks respite is going to do anyway. But I'll give one good example with, I think it was 20, the fuel price hike of 20, the Occupy Nigeria. Was it 2012? 2012, I remember.
Yes.
That for me was a turning point for how Nigerians can influence change, and how and that brought for me the feeling that we have come of age and that we can actually have voice and agency over decisions in our country. I have not seen such happen again. I think this also depends on the leadership. Does the leadership have a listening ear? Nigerians always give their opinions. I mean, we are one of the most outspoken people on earth. The average Nigerian doesn't keep quiet. You know, within the country, outside the country, we are always very vocal with our thoughts about how things should be. We may not always have the solutions, you know, but we complain about how things are going, and we voice our discontent with how things are going. But does the government take this feedback? Check. Apart from API, how many times has government even reached out to organizations like yours to say, can you do a poll on this issue, you know, on this law, on this policy, on this administrative bill? None. You don't even see any nationwide poll to test the waters, to test any policy. You just hear about it. Look at the one with, let's consider that of, was it the FIRS that made a blunder a couple of days ago, and the retraction. You would have expected before that kind of huge decision was taken, you know, that there's API, there's NOI, there's so many of these institutions. There's even nicer, you know, if government wants to use its own institutes to run polls and do it. And government is the only, even the NBS, even its own NBS. Let's even say it doesn't want to use NBS. How many polls do you see NBS even undertake to test the waters, to see how Nigerians are going to react over an issue? We just wake up and every day it's one day, one trouble. We hear one news item and then we shout and then they pull it down. That is not governance. Governance listens. Governance is not is proactive, not reactive. What we have right now is a very reactive government. Let's cut one toe. Let's see if they will shout. Can they feel it? Or let's pinch Nigerians. No, you don't do that. So for me, I think Nigeria doesn't care that much about the opinion of its people. Do our opinions count is a different thing. We make enough noise. We say it as it is. We tell government when we're not happy. But does it count? In the court of public opinion, yes, maybe. But with government policies, do they really listen? What's the feedback channel between that and government? Government has to learn to be proactive. This reactive governance is not doing us well. And that's why we keep taking one step forward and 10 steps backwards. NPS should not just be giving us quarterly governance indicators, quarterly economic indicators, quarterly, GDP and all that. They should be giving us more. I would like to see an NBS carry out it, but how many Nigerians believe that there's COVID-19? I've only read that from API. I've only read that from NOI. What's the Ministry of Information doing? If you think that the opinions of your people matter, you need to do more to hear that. We're 180 million, going on 200 million people or more, we don't know. But there are nations who are much more than us that even assess their governments mid-year, they do this mid-year polling to see how a president is doing midway into their tenure. No governor even does that. You come and celebrate 100 days in office, but there's no feedback from the states. What have I done in these 100 days? What have I done in these 2 years of my, but we see publications celebrating the 100. So it's just government dishing out what it's doing. There's no feedback mechanism for us to say, this is what government is doing, and this is how government is doing. I recall Abuja used to have one call line, toll-free line. You could see it by the flyovers when you are driving to the central business district. I don't know what has happened in this area, but it's not happening. Who is taking stock of that? Who is even to want to tick a box? That would be my submission for now. Thank you.
I'm not sure we heard the last thing you said, please. Oh.
Hello?
Okay, good. Thanks. That's a clinical one. Thank you very much. And I think it actually answers the question about whether citizens' opinion or voice count. We don't have much of the time by us now. I think we'll just go to the next one, which is, I think this one is quite interesting given the fact that Prof is actually aging. Prof, the next question here speaks to you. As a Nigerian Prof, I'm asking you, do you think the government cares enough for the elderly in the society? I would want to hear your opinion, please.
As a young man, let me just go back to the question of voice. Because I think voice is very important.
I agree. Prof, if he's a young man, please, why are we all laughing?
Yeah, don't mind that. I would say in political sociology, we associate voice with exit. When democracies operate correctly, the voice of citizens determines the mode of governance. That is why opinion surveys are so important in democracies, so that governments know at each point in time what are the issues of concern for citizens. I think that very clearly, when citizens feel they don't have voice, that is, what they are saying is not being taken account of, then they take what's called the exit option. Exit means many things, but the core definition of exit is that the citizens decide to take the path of self-reliance. Okay, in my community, there's no security, whereas being harassed in our houses every day. So let's organize and set up a vigilante to protect ourselves. We have no water, so if the citizen is rich, he does a borehole. If he's poor, a well. If the well has to be too deep, they go to the river. Therefore, for every aspect of life concerning citizens, when they are not provided for, when their needs are not responded to, then they take that path of exit, which is self-reliance. Now, once you do self-reliance, this takes us back to the social contract. Why the hell should you pay to the state that doesn't do anything for you? You are providing everything. Therefore, you do all in your power if they ask you to pay tax to avoid paying that tax because you feel you get nothing for your resources. Because the bond between citizens and the state is that when the state performs well, citizens are happy and they are ready to support the state. And the opposite happens when they do not do well. But the other issue about exit is that people start thinking, well, why the hell should I stay in this country, in this political system, which provides absolutely nothing for me? And actually, the relationship between me and this political community is a toxic one. And that's where you have these separatist movements that emerge and saying, this state is really not in my interest. And if I can opt out to another political community that may this time serve my interests, then that's the best path to me. Of course, you never know if you do succeed in opting out, what the cost will be, and whether the new political community will in fact be different from the one you had left previously. And I think there are lots of historical examples to allude to that will be on the path to a greater tomorrow. But this question of voice and its absence, or rather voice and its presence, means citizen participation in governance. That's the whole basis for representative democracy. And when that voice is not listened to, then you have the exit option. And the exit option can either take the form of self-reliance and therefore non-dependence on the state, and separation from that state. To go back to the question of whether the state provides for the elderly, I think in a sense, that's a cheeky question, because the state does not provide for the young, for those who are the greater tomorrow. And I think there are a number of key indicators you can look at. Education in this country has virtually collapsed for the poor. Public education is not functional. Here in northern Nigeria, public schools are factories for the reproduction of illiteracy. That's all they do, reproduce illiteracy. So you have increasingly a population in which there's a sharp division between the children of the elite who go to private high fees paying schools and get a good education, and the children of the masses who leave school barely literate and are not able to contribute significantly for the future of this country. And the discussion about what all these numbers mean are really about tomorrow. And tomorrow, the questions our children and grandchildren will be facing is, you, the children of elites who went to Oyibo schools and high-fee paying schools, you think will allow you mess up our lives the way your parents messed up the lives of our parents? That's the question for tomorrow. And I think there's a sense in which nobody is looking at this country's demography and posing questions of what are the implications of current practices, especially in education, for tomorrow's generation. We should devote some time to think about that.
Prof, I'm still staying with you. Sorry for me to interject, Collins. We have a question here coming from a member of the audience. You talked about the culture of self-help. And it's from Olawale Rashid, and he's asking, the emerging culture of self-help, can that help to strengthen democracy in some way? Is it possible or likely that self-help mode can help strengthen democracy by upscaling citizens' participation in electoral politics? Is self-help good for us, Prof?
You know, in all of classic political sociology, the culture of self-help is destructive of the state. Its impact is negative and its risks are enormous. The grandfather of political sociology, Max Weber, made the point that what's important in a modern political community is that the monopoly of the means of violence must be in the hands of the state. That's the whole basis of the social contract. When individuals have access to guns, they use it. And when they use it, it's for self-interest. And at the end, the lowest denominator of self-interest is that individual. So the culture of self-help is itself a manifestation of the collapse of the social contract. Because when the social contract collapses, the threat to people's lives increases. The risks they meet become higher. And then they seek for means of self-preservation. Take the vigilantes, the joint civilian joint, what do they call it? Civil, I've forgotten, civilian joint task force.
Civilian JTF, joint task force.
Yes, civilian joint task force.
Yeah.
There's a lot of concern in this country because these young members of the community are being armed to confront the enemy. They then discover that those arms give them high power relative to everybody else in society. And actually today, they are beginning to realize today, these arms, let's go and do a patrol. And they start picking up members of the community and getting their savings provide security for the community, turns against that community, that society, and becomes harmful. So I don't believe because is the path of democracy. It is simply a reflection of the broken citizen contract, and therefore is something that rises out of society because things are not simply being done the right way. That's my view.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think at this point in time, we want to open up a bit to allow some of our audience to, ask some questions and make some contributions. I've been seeing the hands of Toye Fashion. Can you please unmute yourself and join in the conversation? Toye. Okay, if Toye is not there, can we, anyone else who wants to join in the conversation is free to do so. I can see Eva of Leaders of Africa. Eva, would you be willing to join in the conversation and ask some questions and make some contributions?
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, and happy Independence Day to Nigeria. I'm originally from Ghana, so it's good to be part of this conversation. So this was really enlightened, talking about how Nigerians feels about how the country treat them, and also how the country is catering for their voices. So what I learned from this is that it has come to a point where Nigerians have, there's no give and take, as one of the ladies said, that they give to the country, but they're not getting anything back. So right now they have to kind of take care of themselves. But my question is, if Nigerians decide that because their leaders are not really paying particular attention to the issues that they have, and they decide to sit back, then they are giving their leaders the opportunity to do whatever they want without any accountability. So my question is, how do we make our people, that means the citizens, to hold their leaders accountable in terms of calling them? I don't know if there are phone lines in the members of parliament or senator's office, how can we make them to call their senators to demand some of, to hold them accountable on some of the promises they've made? And even if there are no phone lines, I believe that we have voices. We have the radio station, we have other forms of media channels that we can use to hold these people accountable. So my question is, how do we hold them accountable? How do we call them to pay attention to the issues that are taking place in the country? That is the first one. And the second one is that I think that most of the politicians, when they get into power, they are out of touch with the main situation that is happening on the ground. So the other thing is that because we the citizens know that this is what happens every 4 years or every 5 years when they are in power, we don't have to be silent. We don't have to wait for an election year to come for us to say that we are going to vote them out. We should get involved. And the other thing is, I don't know if there is any form of community engagement that is also taking place at the community level. And if there is no such thing, how do we mobilize people, even at the community level, to come together to be able to hold the leaders accountable?
Thank you very much. Before the answer, we'll just take one more question. I see Toye is back. Toye, will you like to unmute yourself and ask your question, and we'll take the questions together.
Okay. Good afternoon, or will I say good evening now? It's nice having this program. From the understanding of social contract, I know it's a deed between two parties. I don't think historically there's any contract that one partner will not be stronger than the other. So I feel that the government is stronger than the citizen. And I expect that the stronger party should be able to ensure that the contract, is fulfilled. Now, I want to ask, vis-a-vis, historical, what has happened in other countries. Take, for example, in China, Chairman Mao, between 1949 to 1976, was able to change the fate of China. Take, for example, in Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew was able to change the story of that country. He spent 31 years. Is there anything wrong about our culture that is a misfit between the democracy and our culture? Do we need to look at the kind of government we are running? Is this type of contract the problem? What is the foundational problem that makes it look as if this democracy is not working? Because you can't do it without our culture. You go back to Middle East, you see what is happening there when the USA, and the other Western countries intervene. They mess up, the kind of system of government they've been having over the years. Egypt has always been a very, peaceful country. It's chaotic now. You talk about Tripoli, it's chaotic. You look at all those, countries that their form of government is not similar to the Western way of doing things, and yet they were getting it better. Is there something wrong about our culture? Is there a misfit between our contract that we are running now and our culture? That's the question.
Thank you very much. So I would go for responses now. I think I'll allow Funke to have the first shot, and your people to hold the government accountable, and how do we mobilize the people at community level to hold leaders accountable?
Thank you, Eva. I'll say three things, and we use it in the women's rights movement a lot, and I think it also applies to us here. Voice is one, agency, and power. We need these three things to continue to push and to engage our leaders. Voice, I've spoken about a lot of times, that you don't keep quiet just because people are not listening. You keep talking until you wear them out and you talk the right. Agency is using what you're saying to ensure you put the right things in the right place, because we can't all dig a well. We can't all go to the stream. There will be persons with disability who can't get to the stream to get their own water. We also can't all afford borehole or treated water in our homes. We can't even pave. How many of us have had to pave the way to our villages or our towns or cities? We can't afford that. So we can't continue to divide up Nigeria and everybody just takes a piece of it, do our part. we'll be working as individuals and not a nation. And that's exactly what's wrong with Nigeria right now. We're not addressing this country as a country. We're all individuals just trying to survive, individually and independently. And it's working for the political class. It's working for those in authority. The more we continue to do that, the more they can continue to take our collective wealth while we struggle to provide our own water, our own electricity without us asking questions. And a lot of times when I've had bad service in places and I go all out, I fill those response questionnaires. How are we doing? People think I have OCD for doing that. I fill them and they always get back to me. But not many people do that. We feel if we get bad service somewhere, we just go on to another person. We wait for the next president to come or the next governor to come. We have voice and agency. When we continue to give that and to do that, we move on and then have the power to make the changes that we want. But we need to sustain our voice. We need to sustain our agency. It's not about protesting once or protesting twice and then say Nigeria is not listening. We need to continue to do that. Even at the community level, you find out that even the communities probably work better than the urban cities because everyone at the urban area has solar panel. We have an inverter, we have a generator, or I better pass my neighbor, and we have a borehole or well. But at the community level, where they don't have that luxury, they hold their leaders accountable. That's why you find local government chairmen and senators and House of Reps. They hardly go back to the villages because those people have no options. They have no other choices. We have our fancy desk-paying jobs and white-collar jobs where we can stay at home since March like me and work from home and earn a living. These people have to go to the farms and they are going to be confronted by insurgents. They're going to be confronted by armed bandits when they need to get to the farm to make their living. They need the markets. They need daily pay to make their living. They don't have options. They don't have the luxury of the kind of lives that we have in the city center. So those would be that's my response: voice, agency, and power. In that order, for us to continue to sustain that. I don't know whether Toye's question was for me or for Prof. It looks like
I'll come to Prof
a
for
more
that.
complicated question. Prof should take that.
So, Prof, is there something wrong with our culture, or is there something wrong in our DNA that's not making us get our acts together? And Toye cited Asia, cited China, and how some of these places have been able to, over time, within their context and culture, get their acts together. What is the matter with us?
I think to understand what the matter with us is, you have to go back to his original question. Who is stronger, the government or the people? And it depends on which part of history you are looking at. In the earlier part of history, you remember Louis XIV, the king of France. Well, his grandson, Louis XVI, discovered the answer. When the people rose in revolt, took Louis XVI and cut his head off the guillotine. At that point, the people in France have taken the decision that we are the stronger party. We are stronger than the government. The government is us. And if the government doesn't act on behalf of citizens, then citizens must arise to respond to that government's irresponsibility towards them. And it was on that basis that democracy arose in the modern era. That's why in all democratic constitution, the definition of sovereignty is the people. It's never the government. The government, the head of state, the president, legislators, they are not the expression of sovereignty. The expression of sovereignty is always the people. Now, the problem with sovereignty residing in the people is that for that sovereignty to have resonance, for it to have impact, for that voice of the people to have agency. Beautiful formula from Baruwa. The people must organize themselves. They must come out and use that power. And there are ways in which they can use that power, and we see it daily at the world level. I will say, therefore, in my concluding word in this excellent discussion, is that the Nigerian people have enormous power, but they haven't organized themselves, they haven't mobilized themselves to use that power and force governance that is in their own interest to happen. It's possible, we should work at it, and if we do, the future will be bright. Irwa and Collins, I think it's been a great discussion. Thank you so much for both the research you did to produce results we could debate on, and to the excellent conversation we have had. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you. So Prof had mentioned that he had another meeting and he would not be staying the full hall. In any case, we just have less than 15 minutes to go. So we're wrapping up now. It's actually 5:19, so we have 10 minutes to go. We wrap up this session by 5:30. Two things came out strong from this survey as we try to wrap up. Prof, you've talked about people, having to first of all organize themselves. My question is, with the rate of poverty and the rate of unemployment, we see that especially young people have become tools in the hands of politicians and tools in the hands of people who want to make use of them to foment trouble or engage in violent crimes. When we asked Nigerians, what areas of policy would you like government to focus its attention on? Collins, if you could give us that slide. At least the first thing that Nigerians pointed, their opinion was employment policies. We have a situation currently where 27.1% of the population are unemployed and 28.2% are underemployed. Some of them are just doing something little to keep body and soul together. You can't really say they are employed. So you have a situation where about 55.3% of your population are either unemployed or underemployed, and it therefore makes engagement, or it therefore makes wanting or trying to organize themselves difficult. How can this happen in the face of mounting poverty and of course unemployment that's ravaging the nation?
I think let me just make the point that we have a lot to learn from history. When you have a large percentage of the population who are very poor, they often find it overwhelming to challenge state power. They don't have the means, they are afraid, but they have one vital resource that's held in potential, and that resource is anger. When social revolutions occur, it is really a disaffected middle class that would usually initiate responses that will provide the resources, the capacity, the organizational skills to get the masses to wake up from their slumber and use that latent anger that's already in them to then impact on the state. There is no state that can resist a massive popular uprising, because the state and its repressive forces, even with their arms, are always a tiny minority of the population. So I think the responsibility really lies in us. our capacity and skills in organizing the people, in framing an agenda that could carry the nation, the citizens of the nation along. When we fail, it is usually because we members of the elite, rather than defining a national agenda that could mobilize the whole population, get trapped into identity politics. And we feel we only organize members of our religion or our ethnic group or our zone. And when we do that, we create the basis for our own failure. On this day of independence, I think my own message is it's possible for us, the Nigerian elite, to develop a pan-Nigerian agenda on which we can mobilize the people to arise and create voice that's loud enough to create agency, and that agency will lead to the assumption of power by the people. Thank you so much, and have a good day.
Thank you, Prof. Funke, I'll come back to you now as we also wrap up this session. Other policy areas that were mentioned by Nigerians are the issue of security, policies around security, and policies around good governance and empowerment. What's your take on these areas of policy?
Yes, so I'll first say that I agree with Prof around organizing. There's time for everything. We have agonized a lot. Agonizing is actually the first stage. First, I would change Prof's analogy. Instead of organize, agonize, then organize. Because you need to get angry to be able to make change happen. So I think we're angry enough. It's taking that leap of faith to get to where we organize that is now our challenge. On all the scores here, I'm pleased really with this. The distribution from employment policies to security policies. It shows that the average Nigerian knows know what they want. They want policies on good governance. They want security. Security is even second place, and employment. So we're not lazy people. Employment takes the day. People want good, decent jobs. People want to earn a living. And when people earn a living, it means they can pay tax. The disconnect and the out-of-body experience that our leaders have with Nigerians is oil. I can't wait for oil to dry up. This cheap source of income and this cheap source of revenue that allow to disenfranchise and ignore its people. The people are your greatest resource. I would have thought that other things would have come up as first. I'm really happy with this particular slide, that Nigerians take employment. You know, even though I'm not so happy that education came up on number 5, I would have expected education and employment. But it shows that the Nigerians really want something to do. They want honest living. So this saying that, oh, that you just want cheap money, they just want to win a lottery, it's not true. People want to earn a decent income. People want to be secure. People want good governance. People want empowerment and education. Law enforcement, infrastructure, health and insurance, they even go down the line. But I'm so glad that the average Nigerian wants to have a decent livelihood, wants to be productive and to contribute to the country. Now it's for the Nigerian state itself, for those who hold the rudders of this ship called Nigeria, to recognize this and introspect, and that they cannot continue to have this out-of-body experience. It's like they're on a different planet, they're on Mars and we're in Nigeria. They don't feel what the average Nigerian feels. And it's because there's this cheap revenue, you know, that needs to deplete itself so fast so that we can come back to our senses and recognize that the most important resource we have is the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as I wrap up this session, just reading one of the messages from Dr. Abiola Kiyode. She says, exactly, the future lies in the people's ability to take their destiny in their hands. Until we do this, nothing would shift. And as well as other comments from other participants this evening. Collins, I think in wrapping up, I will hand over to you to wrap up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Olufunke Baruwa and Professor Jibrin Ibrahim. It's been a very wonderful session having all of you, give your voice, lend your voice to the conversation about the actual situation in the country, talking about how Nigerians are being treated by the Nigerian state, and of course how the Nigerian state has actually on several occasions, on several instances, have deviated from the core of that agreement, in quotes, known as the social contract. Well, like we had actually told you before now, this conversation is a twin one. It is one that rests on a coin. First is the survey we've produced about whether Nigeria loves Nigerians. The subsequent one is going to take the other dimension, which will be whether Nigerians love Nigeria as a state. And interestingly, we are going to be emphasizing the key outcomes of this particular conversation, where we are going to be reinforcing part of the indicators that we're going to be pushing out to be what Professor Jibrin Ibrahim had actually posited. We're going to be looking at whether we're going to be asking our prospective respondents whether they pay their tax, whether they've been able to keep faith with certain responsibilities and obligations expected of them by the Nigerian state. And if that is the situation, of course, the outcome of the survey would speak for itself. I want to appreciate everybody who has been part of this conversation. I want to thank you most sincerely, Olufunke Baruwa. I appreciate, although Prof has actually left the conversation, but we still extend our appreciation. It was quite a privilege for us to hear Prof speak. Prof is a doyen of development and democracy, and it's quite a pleasure. And of course, Olufunke Baruwa, we know you and we know how far you've been helping the area of women advocacy and related areas. We appreciate your effort and of course your quality conversation and submissions. We thank everybody who has been part of this, and we hope you join us in subsequent editions of this conversation. African Polling Institute is an opinion research think tank based in Africa. We conduct opinion surveys, we do social research around the intersections of governance, democracy, development, public life, and economy. It may interest you to know that we have plethora of surveys that have released in a distant past, some of which include social cohesion and yes, so we are going to be doling out all of this sometimes as occasion demands. Thank you very much, and do have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you.